Today, we need to talk about housing. We need to talk about housing because every single day in our communities, housing is becoming less and less affordable, less and less attainable to more and more households. Households that might be our friends, our family, our coworkers, or people that we rely on to make our communities, our societies run, work, and be vibrant and strong. This is something that I encourage you to think about even if you are living in a home that you've paid off the mortgage on. You're paying off the mortgage without issue. This is something that I encourage you to think about because if you care about the environment, improving our healthcare system, improving our education system, addressing social inequities in our society, I encourage you to think about this because if you don't have housing that is affordable, it is so much harder to address those issues and so many more that we all care about, that our communities care about. So I encourage you to stick around and take a listen if that's the case. The second thing is, as much as this talk relies on data and information from Snohomish County, Washington, this is something that applies throughout Washington State, throughout the country, with different numbers and different stories. This is something that you will find to be true in your community, no matter where you are. So again, please stick around and take a listen. With those two things said, I want to show you some pictures of housing. I want to show you this photo just to get you thinking about what a home looks like, what you would be comfortable with seeing next to you in your neighborhood, in your city, in your town, whether in the downtown core or on the outskirts or somewhere in between. What do you want to have next to you? Would you be comfortable with this house? What about this? Or fourth and finally, this. I'll come back to these photographs and really why I'm showing them to you, but I wanted now to get you thinking about homes and their form, their shape, and our comfort level with what we build and where we live. With that out of the way, let's get to the data. Let's get to the data that shows we have a housing problem in our community. This bar chart really is where everything starts. The green bars, year by year, are the difference between new housing units we built and new households that were established every single year. In 2010, we built over 2,000 more units of housing than new households were established. That 2,000 unit difference in 2010 added to a total surplus of housing of 7,200 that we had accumulated from 2000 to 2010. So we had lots of housing available for people to choose from, whether rental or to own. We had lots of choices. We see that in 2000, this surplus continues, even if 1 or 2 years we have more households than new units are built, we have a surplus. We've always had a surplus. As much as I start counting at 0 in the year 2000, if you take this data back to 1980, we've always had a surplus. Always. Until 2014, 2015, 16. What happens? We plummet into the negatives year over year that wipes out any surplus of housing stock, any availability of housing stock in our community, in Snohomish County. What happened? What happened is simply a lot more households were established than new housing units were created, were built. We've never seen this before. Never. In over 30 years of data, we've never seen something like this happen. The effects of this are profound. This red line that just came up is the inflation adjusted. I want to emphasize that. Adjusted to 2019 dollars, adjusted for inflation, median sale price of a single family home, townhome, and condominium altogether. You see that in 2006, 2007, prices were quite high. In retrospect, that shouldn't have been because we had lots of housing stock, lots of housing choices to go around. Economics 101 says you shouldn't have prices rising if there is plenty of surplus good housing to go around. And in retrospect, that was true because we experienced the recession in 2008 and onward. Now, home prices have exceeded their 2007 peak. Now, home prices are so high for a very different reason. Because that blue bar in the background, our housing stock, our housing availability, is gone. It's all used up. We don't have enough left. We don't have enough for new people coming here to occupy. And so people bid up the price of homes. They bid up the price of rentals Rental prices are on this same trajectory. So the median sale price is important, but it's not really the determinant of being able to access housing. Because after all, most households finance their purchase of a home with a home loan from a bank. The bank really cares about what you make, how much money you make, to determine if you are a good investment, if you will be able to pay back that loan that they give you. That is represented by this brown line. As you would expect, this tracks pretty closely with the sale price. That's the biggest determinant of how much money you need to make, and also interest rates and property taxes and so on. This is the typical loan. Given typical loan terms, this is what you need to make on this median home. Again, adjusted for inflation. So if that's what you need to make, the next logical question is, well, how much do we make? How much does the median family make? That is this purple line. The answer is not enough, to be quite blunt. Adjusting for inflation, the required income and the median income for a family were almost identical, $84,000 and $83,000 respectively in the year 2000. And look at how much they've diverged since then, to the tune of almost $30,000, over $30,000. That's the difference that we've never seen before in Snohomish County. And we're paying for it. Because think about who makes below $89,000 in your community. I can tell you in Snohomish County, that includes sheriff's deputies, police officers who make $85,000 a year on average, firefighters who make around $80,000 a year, your middle school teachers, your pharmacy technicians, your dental assistants, so many jobs that we rely on, that we need, occupations and professions that make our communities, our society run, to say nothing of the service industry, your hairstylist, barista, grocery store clerks, and so many more, make so much less than what they need to access even the median house in our communities. This is something that I want to pause on to give us all time to reflect on. Who we know that is affected by this is represented in these numbers. And then let's talk about solutions. Because I hope at this point you're saying, Chris, I really need a solution right now. I could really use some hope and some optimism that something can be done to address this gap, this huge gap between what you need and what we actually make. And there is something we can do. There's something that you can do. There's two things that you can do, actually. The first thing is you need to think about, what does a home mean? What does a home look like? What are we comfortable with? I want you to think about if you're comfortable with these homes being your neighbors that I showed you earlier. Because none of these homes are single-family homes. The first one, that's a duplex. Second, that's courtyard apartments. Third, that's cottage housing. And fourth, that's live-work. That's a residential unit on top of a commercial first floor. Think about if you would be comfortable with this being your neighbor, the family or families that live there being your neighbors. The reason that I'm presenting this as a solution is because we can't have these housing types in our communities by and large today. In Snohomish County, over 60% of our residentially zoned land area is exclusively reserved for a single-family home. Let me say that again. Over 60% of the residential land area in Snohomish County can only have a single-family home on it. Everything that I showed you can't be done, can't be built, not allowed. On the other 40% of our land area, the demand is so intense and so high pressure that you never see housing like this in that multifamily zone land area. So this housing types, these duplexes, courtyard apartments, cottage housing, and live-work, they have no place. They are the missing middle. They are what's in between a single-family home and a mid-rise apartment or condominium complex. They are the forgotten housing types that American society, American culture has, for some reason, forgotten exist. doesn't support anymore. So I encourage you, the first thing that you can do, I encourage you to think about this. Think about if you want to see this in your community. Think about if you want to see, maybe not yourself, maybe it doesn't work for you, but maybe somebody else, maybe other families, other households living, allowed to have the choice to live in homes in configurations like this. These places are more affordable just by the simple nature of them being smaller in square footage. So first, think about that and share it with your family, your coworkers, your friends. Share these ideas with them. Ask them what they think. Share this idea that housing can be more than a single-family home or a 250-unit, 5-story apartment building. There's lots of choices, lots of options that we can pursue that we don't have right now, that we don't allow. That's step one, because what you think really informs what will get built by builders. Step two is encourage your cities to adopt and support this kind of flexibility in its housing stock. Because as much as a builder wants to know what you think, that what you want and what your community wants to see, they won't build something that they can't get permitted, obviously. So contact your city leaders and ask them to think about this flexibility, to support this kind of flexibility in your community, in your neighborhood, in your zoning, in your land use. Previously, I worked for Governor Jay Inslee in constituent services. I made daily tallies, weekly tallies of the number of calls, letters, emails that we got on particular issues. And an issue that was on the fence could be swayed by a few hundred to 1,000 calls or contacts. That was considered a lot for us. And that's from a state of over 7 million people. Think about how many times people in your community contact the people that control these land use and permitting decisions, your city council, your mayor. How many people call and make their voice heard in your community? I can tell you the answer is very, very few. In the absence of hearing what people really think, your leaders are reluctant to change. What they do hear is some people saying, no change. I want no change here in my community. And I encourage you to be a voice of, I'm okay with some change. I'm okay with missing middle housing in our neighborhoods because it addresses the issue of this housing affordability crisis that we are engulfed in today. And it's not something that is outside of what my comfort zone, my comfort with what my community can be, can look like. I encourage you to call, to make your voice heard with your city council, with your mayor, because they will not do something unless you tell them it is okay. I work with city councils and mayors across Snohomish County, and I have heard time and time again that I've sold them on this idea. They believe it. They know it. They see it every single day in their lives and their jobs, that we have a housing affordability crisis in Snohomish County. But they know that they would be defeated in November at the ballot box if they even entertained this idea. They would love to act, but for the lack of support in their community. I encourage you to give them that support. Make your voice heard. Allow them that flexibility to act on this issue so that we can all have a community that we can all find a place to live in, no matter our income, no matter our occupation, no matter our background. Thank you.